Today is January 19th, 2020. My name is Lori Kurtz. My pronouns are she, hers. Would you please introduce yourself, say your name, your pronouns if you care to, and tell us all the things you do?
Of course. Hello, my name is Lola Coquette. My pronouns are she, her. I am a queer, femme, Latinx, and Mexican performer, originally from Arizona, now based in the Rose City. I am a performer, producer, and instructor. And in order to be able to be a working artist, I work in the service industry. So I work specifically in champagne and wine. I like to say I work with bubbles and butts.
Well, let's start off with a big question. What is burlesque?
Okay. Burlesque comes from the Latin word, the root word to burl, to make fun of, to ridicule, to find satire. So with that, it is also the art of the tease. So for me, ultimately, if I were to describe burlesque, it would be Lucille Ball or Carol Burnett with a little bit of shoulder and shimmy.
Great. And what's the difference between stripping in a club and burlesque stripping?
I feel that the difference is the intent. I've never worked in a club, so that's something to be said. But I feel that is for the male gaze. And those performers are there for hours on end, set after set after set after set. So it's very physically demanding. And there's no minimum wage. It's tips only. Performing in a theater setting, I feel that is, the gaze is different. It is for anybody and everybody. There is a little bit of a distance, can be a little bit of distance from the audience. And most shows, at least we are trying to make that a mandatory. Hopefully, most producers honor paying a base pay. And then in addition to that, tips. So I really do think it comes down to intent.
Yeah. And how do you describe the kind of burlesque that you do?
Oh my goodness. So I, as any other person, am multifaceted about everything, multidimensional. So I do very a fierce fusion of Latinx, samba, cha-cha, reggaeton, into classic bump and grind, because I think bump and grind is so sexy and raw and in your face. But I also do very goofy burlesque, and I incorporate a lot of nerd burlesque. So I, as my best friend Kit Catastrophic says, I am a goofy motherfucker. So it's a lot of physical comedy, and it just depends on the act and depends on the venue. So I'm very versatile.
So where were you born and where did you grow up?
Okay. I was born in Tucson, and I grew up most of my life in Nogales, Arizona, on the American side of the Mexican border. We're 11 minutes walking distance from the border. And I lived there most of my life. I went to the University of Arizona, and I went to grad school there as well. And then I lived in Phoenix, which is where I started burlesque.
Great. And what brought you to Oregon?
So, this is a deep question. So, Oregon actually saved my life. I was in a very dark place in my life and hitting a wall, professionally, personally, and artistically. And I met wonderful people here. My first Oregon Burlesque Festival, backstage, Kit Catastrophic, Holly Day, Angelique DeVille, Zara and Pavanin, and Isaiah and Johnny, and befriended them. And a couple months later, I came back to tour. Angelique helped me put together producer lists and reach out to them. So it was a really hard couple of years, and finally I said I need to go where I'm happy and I'm celebrated and I am appreciated. So yeah, Oregon saved my life. Portland specifically saved my life, so that's what brought me here. Great. Without going on a rant.
Yeah. And so going back, what did you do in your formative years, whatever those are, that led you to performance?
Okay. I've been performing since I was a child. I did the ballet thing, but I actually danced for a ballet company, and I danced ballroom, and I did competitive hip-hop dancing, as well as musical theater, never singing, always dancing. I'm not a singer. But I'm also a musician. So as a jazz musician, I play bass, upright bass, and bass guitar. I've always been drawn to the drama of performing on stage. Other than that, I was a writer, I was an editor, I worked in politics. So a little bit of everything. And it let me understand what I don't want to do and what I do want to do and where my boundaries are as far as how much I share of myself and when I do that.
Yeah. What did you do in politics?
I worked for a couple of different politicians. I worked on their campaigns. I worked with Gabrielle Gifford's campaign in Tucson.
Great.
Long time ago.
What came first, in being a musician or the dancing?
The dancing. Dancing came first. But I grew up in a house that was multilingual, multicultural. So dancing and music were always around. My first instrument was the church organ with my grandmother, and I'm sure it was awful, and I played two keys. But I played violin for a long time, starting at 8, but I started dancing at 3. And with that, I also started self-defense at 5, which led to capoeira later, which is Brazilian martial arts disguised as dancing and singing.
Why is it disguised?
It was the only way slaves had to protect themselves. So it was a form of self-defense. It is a form of self-defense. And it was disguised through music and sound and dancing. So there's drums and it's community based. Everybody comes out. And that helped me touch base with my Brazilian heritage lineage.
Cool. What formal education you've already, or training do you have, just in general? What was your undergrad in and then your grad school?
It was I have 2 degrees as an undergrad, political science and creative writing. And then political science was Spanish and then creative writing. And so languages were always a part of it. And I have an MFA in creative writing. Great. And I don't like to write about myself.
And then dance and performance training classes, or what have you done?
I worked with several companies, ballet. Obviously that didn't last past when I was 18 because my body just wasn't built for that. Mm-hmm. Hip hop, ballroom, salsa, merengue, cha-cha, reggaeton, street dance. Other than being a musician also just taught me a lot about synchronicity and rhythm. So I play several instruments, and I was a performing, recording musician by the time I was 15. I played on the mariachi band. So I guess that just led me to the stage, knowing that I wanted that instant interaction with people.
Yeah. Have you been to BurleyCon?
Only a couple times. No, I've been to BurleyCon. I believe this is my 6th year going.
And then training, can you talk about the education and the training
Sure.
there?
It's a lot of workshops, everything. A person can go there with all the years of experience or none. And you get everything from history, classes and workshops, and open sessions and conversations about producing, performing, filing your taxes, advanced floor work, how to market yourself, how to build your persona, how to work with different abilities and disabilities and different body types. You can also connect with other groups such as the queer performers, which I am, with other performers of color, with other Latinx, Mexican performers. There's so many different groups. So it is a great learning opportunity. It is also amazing because you do not have to be in drag. Everybody is walking around with their yoga pants and running shoes and their water bottles and is just happy to be able to learn, be a student on the same level as everybody else.
So what is the drag that you're talking about?
Face, putting on lashes, putting on your makeup, putting on hair, setting up your persona, how you present your persona on stage.
So you mentioned starting in burlesque. What year and how did you get started?
It'll actually be, today is January 19th, it'll actually be February 7th will be my 9th year mark performing. And I started in Phoenix, and I studied under a troupe called Vava Voom. And my first instructor is a wonderful performer, Maximilians, who is a big, amazing performer and producer. She produces Spellbound in Phoenix, and I highly recommend anybody look her up and her production. So she's my first instructor. We were under a different director, and it was a group act. And I still hadn't learned the rest of the group number. We were in classes learning. So I had a crash course in the last couple 8 counts, and they brought me on. And I guess that prepared me to just be there. So I got my start taking a class because my friend wanted to check off something off her bucket list. And she recommended that, and I'd gone through a series of bad dating adventures, and I decided to do this for myself, to feel myself, which is a very common reason a lot of people start burlesque. And it took me 2 years before I was performing, I was doing solos already, before I could look at myself in the mirror intently and make faces at myself. And it wasn't until I started teaching that I felt more comfortable, because I had to be brave for other people, that I started really connecting with why I was doing burlesque.
Right. So artistically, was there anyone who was an influence or an inspiration to you?
So I remember watching, when I first started, the first Mexican performer that I saw had won the title at Viva Las Vegas is Ruby Champagne. And she, to this day, is a dear friend of mine, still an inspiration, and she's still just trailblazing for everybody. So that was really amazing to see someone, and I got to meet her backstage, and she's very demure and shy, and so I just went up to her and I'm like, "Hi, I'm a huge fan." And she's like, "Oh my goodness," and she's very dear. Other than that, just watching a Michelle L'Amour, if you look up Beethoven, isolating your booty is just wonderful, because everybody has a booty, so it's possible for anybody to do, but she's just ahead of her time. Of course, Miss Indigo Blue, watching her documentary, right? It was just so inspiring. And then later, once I started doing the festival circuits, meeting burlesque legends. So it was at the first Latin Hispanic Burlesque Festival, which was then based in Dallas. I met Miss Kit Natividad, who was also, she's a burlesque legend, meaning she has been doing this for a long time. She was also Miss Nude Universe in the 70s, 2 years in a row, I believe. And she was in a ton of movies, pioneering the way for people to be able to express themselves in the art form. And getting to meet her and getting to see her excited once I got off stage with tears, excited for me, was just, I've seen you in movies. I've seen you in, oh my goodness, So that was, meeting the legends just solidified it.
So how did you develop your career after that beginning?
I honestly almost quit in 2014. It was at the beginning of 2014, there was a lot of changes. It was a very strange time in my life, and I wasn't the best person. So I almost quit, and it was just several people found enough good in me and in my performance to, nope, we're bringing you to do this show. We're bringing you to do this act. And I kept doing it, but honestly, it was traveling outside of Arizona and meeting new people and putting myself in a situation where I'm the new person and I'm learning everything I can and meeting people who are also in the same position. There's so many dear friends of mine. We met as baby burlesquers. So that kept me going and being inspired by people doing innovative things. Evesia performing with her puppet act at the first Oregon Burlesque Festival. Like, what is this? This is amazing. We need this. And why is that not okay to be weird on stage? So it wasn't until I started leaving what I thought was everything I knew, and I knew there was more to it, that it refueled my fire to do this and to do it my way.
Great. So just for a minute here, what do you do outside of burlesque? You mentioned earlier some champagne and bubbles. What are all the sort of day job that you do to support your art?
Okay, well, I work in the service industry, and the cost of living in Portland is much higher than living in Arizona. So I find myself working harder than I used to. So most of the time I do not have a social life. My social life revolves around, after I'm done performing, mingling and mixing with my castmates and friends at shows. But I work in service industry. I'm very fortunate to be able to work for a business owned by women, run by women, pioneers in their field, very generous with their knowledge and information. So that fulfills my need in knowing more than just what I'm doing. I like to do several projects at once. So a long time ago, I got my sommelier certification back in Arizona, and I never thought I'd use it again. And I still probably should retake the test because there's so much knowledge. But I really enjoy working with a lot of wonderful, kind people that support my art. Other than that, I also offer legal translations as volunteer service, especially with Spanish, because that's necessary. And I do odds and ends jobs, as most artists do, which would bore you to list them, so I'm not going to.
And so you came from the Southwest. Mm-hmm. What's the burlesque community like in Oregon?
Wow, it's huge. First of all, just Burlesque PDX is probably 4 times the size of the entire burlesque community in the entire state of Arizona. So it's just Burlesque PDX, Burlesque proper, which includes Eugene and Astoria. So it's just so many different types of burlesque, and there's a crossover from strip culture and strip clubs. So there's infinitely more performers, but there's so many other opportunities. You can catch in a show almost every night of the week. And different things, gore, nerdlesque, drag. The drag crossover is amazing. I perform with Portland Drag Queen Brunch. I'm a core cast member, very fortunate, and I've learned so much about performance and changing my performance style to run around an entire restaurant, and turn what we usually do in burlesque, which is a 4-minute act, to a 6-minute act. So burlesque in Oregon is just wild. Not to say that Arizona doesn't have amazing burlesque, because the opportunities that have blossomed in the last couple of years are amazing. But it's just so much more up here.
Yeah. And so who's the audience who's typically drawn to burlesque?
Artists, weirdos, outcasts, bankers, doctors, musicians, anybody that wants to be entertained, has never been to one, they'll go. Yeah.
You've mentioned the Oregon Burlesque Festival, and can you describe what that is? And then I'll ask you to tell us about how you got involved in it.
Absolutely. The Oregon Burlesque Festival started in 2014 with Holly Day and Tana Tattoo Lady, and I do believe they had another producer, but I do not remember their name, so I apologize for that, the first year. And that started at Dante's, downtown, historic Dante's. And it is a 2 to 3 day festival showcasing talents from all over the United States and Canada and there's been other performers from Australia, I believe, and the UK. And it is bring us your weird, bring us your unconventional art. And that venue allowed for fire and some aerial. So I got to see for the first time fire and aerial incorporated in burlesque in a way I hadn't seen that before. So it's a really fun way to meet people here and to meet people from other places. And now we are now at the Alberta Rose Theatre. I have since last year been invited to be a producer, with Riri Sincere and Holly Day. And we have a different venue, just a different feel. We cannot do fire at that venue, so it changes a little bit, but it makes us more creative in the ways that we showcase the types of burlesque we want to offer.
You mentioned earlier that you performed in the Oregon Burlesque Festival.
I performed every single year. Every single year since 2014. It kept me coming back. It's one of the festivals. There's another festival. There's 2 festivals I absolutely adore. I love a lot of them that I've been to, but these 2, I almost moved to the other city because of this other festival. So yes, I've been performing at the Oregon Burlesque Festival since 2014.
Great. And so how is that show curated, or how are the people chosen?
There's an application process. For example, this year applications open March 1st, and for the first week we offer free applications to performers of color, which is something that other festivals have done, and we really encourage more festivals to do.
And why is that?
Because performers of color, or people of color often do not have the same means, including finances. So to be able to offer a little advantage for them to be able to put their art out, including myself, it's given me opportunities. It's really vital to see that, because then you get we got such an amazing response from that last year. So we want to get that. We actually had almost 50% of our entire cast this past year performers of color, if not more, including both our headliners, our legend, and our headlining burlesque performer in Knox Falls, performers of color. So that's something that's obviously very important to me and Riri Sincere, but also important to Holly, and it's important to showcase that. But the rest of the applications open up, and we have a 3-month window. And the reason we have this is because there's so many other festivals going on, and it gives performers the opportunity to get their acts filmed. We're all artists. Most of us are doing things last minute. Let's just be honest about that. It also gives us a window of opportunity for us that travel to be able to network and go to other events and offer, hey, this is the festival, come out. It is a paid festival. We offer all these other incentives. Come and see what we're doing. And the last event that we're going to be offering this kind of networking is at Beehoff. So
what is that?
It is the Burlesque Hall of Fame Weekender. It is a fundraiser to support the Burlesque Hall of Fame Museum in Las Vegas. And I am a community member of the Beehoff Museum. So we meet by conference every odd month. Sorry. So the networking is necessary for us to be able to do applications. And after that, we sit for a couple weeks and watch hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos. And we have a list of criteria. Is it entertaining? Is it curated well? Is the lighting well lit? Can I see your face? Can I see your body? Am I in the first 30 to 60 seconds already tantalized and teased? You do not have to take anything off, but something needs to happen. Something dramatic needs to happen. Something fun needs to happen. This year we received, I think the max applications they had submissions was 150. This year we received 320. And we narrowed it down. We narrowed it down within a few weeks what we wanted to do. Then the selection process we specifically went through. Do we have this style of burlesque? Do we have this color? Do we have, we want to showcase every ability. Performers of color, performers of size, performers of different, and we have post-it notes, and we have this, and this. And it was really fun to be able to see and curate and see something come together. And it just happens that the people selected just blended so well. And we also have alternates, and we ended up pulling up some alternates, what we were very grateful for. So it's a variety. We don't just take classic burlesque. That's a misconception. We take everything, and group acts and duets. And this year we incorporated draglesque, which is very important.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something that this is a paid festival. Mm-hmm. Is that unusual? How does that work?
For the longest time, since my involvement in burlesque festivals, they were not paid. There was not a stipend. And some festivals still don't offer a stipend. They'll offer housing, room and board, someone will pick you up from the airport, which is a lot of money to spend. But up until 2 years ago, Oregon Burlesque Festival started offering a stipend. So it's a $15 honorarium. So it's not a lot, but it's something to offer. In addition to that, you get professional video, professional images, which also a lot of festivals do not offer the video. You have to pay for it. This is the first year we were able to offer that, and we'll continue to offer that. Professional grade video, photos, you get a pass for the entire weekend, which, believe it or not, some festivals do not give their artists a pass for the whole weekend. So after traveling, you have to pay for that. We're not the only ones. There's other festivals that do that. So it's nice to be able to offer recognition. You're doing this, you're bringing us your art, you're letting us showcase you and show our community the variety. Let us give you something in return.
Mm-hmm. So finances with putting on a festival like that, mm-hmm. all of those things you just cited take skill and time, mm-hmm. and so forth. How do the finances work?
Well, I will say Holly Day is a genius at expert record keeping. She's really good with her finances. I've learned so much from her. Riri, her personal job involves a lot of fundraising, so I will not go into more detail of that, but working with those two individuals that know a lot about financing, I just follow suit. So this year we're filing for grants, which is very important, and we actually have the skill set to be able to do that this year. But we have a budget. We have a budget meeting. We sit down. This is what we're spending on venue. This is our deposit for the venue. This is the money that we're getting from applications, because applications do cost money. And that goes straight to being able to pay the videographer, the photographer, being able to pay anybody else involved. We also do pay our stage manager. There's certain people that are helping out. We do have an amazing core group of volunteers that will help us out. But all that money goes back to the legend, paying the headliner. So it just takes a lot of budgeting and sitting down, talking about the very dry material that is money that we don't like to talk about, and discipline.
Yeah. So you mentioned traveling to perform at festivals.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you go?
I started the first festival I did was with my old troupe, and it was April Q in Albuquerque, and that was really fun. We won first runner-up for best troupe. We had 10 troupe members. It was a giant troupe. But I've been to, Oregon Burlesque Festival, Colorado Burlesque Festival, the Show Me Burlesque Festival, which is one of my absolute favorites in St. Louis, Windy City, which is no longer around, the Latin Burlesque Festival in Dallas, and now is the International and Latin Hispanic Burlesque Festival, which I headlined a couple years ago. The Hispanic Burlesque Showcase, which is a national burlesque showcase in Cleveland. Wow, I know I'm missing so many more. I have performed as a scholarship recipient at the Australian Burlesque Festival in Melbourne a couple years ago. And this year I have the honor of returning to the New Mexico Burlesque Festival and going to the Panama Burlesque Festival to compete. And there's another performer, a dear friend of mine here from Portland, also competing, Lily LaFobe. So we get to share that experience together. And today I actually got my acceptance to the Vancouver International Burlesque Festival. I've applied 4 times and with the same act, and I got in this year. So I find the value of travel so much. It's very near to my core. So it's an investment. They do not, unless you are headlining or a featured performer, the likelihood of you getting paid your air and travel and all that, it's non-existent. So these are places I've wanted to go. It's an investment for me. It's a week or weekend away. And it does require a lot of pleading and begging for my poor boss to be able to accommodate that schedule. But it's important to network, and it's important for me to get out there, and important for people to see me as a burlesque performer, as a burlesque performer of color, as a burlesque performer that is queer, Latinx, Hispanic, Mexican out there, and we are not interchangeable. We're not the same. This is our story. And that's an investment for me.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. By the time this comes out, I will have legally accepted my acceptance, so we're good.
Yeah. So you've won some titles in competitions. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
Okay. I've won a couple group numbers with various different groups. I've won the 2014 Best Representation of Latin Culture at the first Latin Burlesque Festival. So that's obviously very near and dear, and that's where I met Miss Kit Natividad. I've won Best Neo, Best Fusion, and then I also won Best Duet with Joy Coy, who is one of the producers of the New Mexico Burlesque Festival based in Minneapolis, and we won with a Nerdlesque act, which has been retired since then, but that was really fun to be able to do that together.
Nerdlesque, what's that?
So Nerdlesque is taking any fandom, any nerdy culture, pop culture, Star Wars, cartoons, comic books, and turning that into a stripping, teasing art form of burlesque. I do a lot of characters, including Daphne from Scooby-Doo, which is where this piece is from. Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove, who was my favorite villain, and probably gave me one of my favorite live photos of me performing on stage. I've also done Miss Argentina from Beetlejuice, Marge Simpson, head to toe body paint, at Metalesque. X-Men, I do the Dark Phoenix. So it's taking, and there's two amazing producers that work in a lot of Nerdlesque here in town, Mad Marquis and Miss Pamela Voorhees. Miss Pamela Voorhees puts on Get Your Geek On, which is a quarterly show that features all nerdoms in burlesque and drag.
Great. So you are a producer with KIT. Mm-hmm. So this is a separate job from the Oregon Burlesque Festival. Tell me how that came about.
So Kit Catastrophic is a Portland mover, shaker, innovator, and founder. She's amazing. Obviously, I have a lot of love for her. We met backstage and instantly became friends. But we saw a need. There's amazing producers here in town. This is not to take anything from anybody's doing. Being a community that has so much burlesque and so many performers, there's sometimes a failure to do research on behalf of newer performers. And research in find out your name, research that, which is something that we used to all, that went through schools, different schools of burlesque, know your research, know the acts out there. There's going to be 5 million Snow White, or nothing, at least several Snow White burlesque acts. There's going to be several, obviously burlesque dances to Pink Pussycat. There's going to be so many, so it's how you interpret it. We were finding that so many new burlesquers here to Portland or new to performing were just recycling ideas that have already been done by performers that have founded burlesque here, and it may have not been intentional, it's just them not doing research. So we came up with the idea, a signature act you don't create, it finds you. Right? That's what signature acts are. You have it, you marinate it, you're known for it. You don't say, I'm going to create a new signature act. That's not, that and taglines you don't create, they come to you. You're given them. And we decided to showcase the movers, shakers, and innovators in Portland and beyond, in the Pacific Northwest, with their signature acts that we have loved and have come to know them for and create. So it came out of, I'm going to be honest, it came out of artistic pettiness and also out of wanting to be inclusive and incorporated and also really touch base with our roots. In order to grow, we need to know where everything's coming from. Not to say you cannot do an act, the same song I'm doing, just know. Just know and give it your own flair. I believe Lacey and I have several of the same songs. Kit and I dance with several of the same songs, but they're completely different. And so Signature, the first show that we had, featured Isaiah Esquire performing Chocolate. It featured my Jaguar, my Jaguar act to Gasolina, Riri Sincere with her hitchhiking act, Holly Day with her pheasant feathers, which she's an amazing performer and costume designer also, but she's known for her feather handwork. So this new show is going to feature Angelique DeVille, doing one of her signature acts she's had around for ages. And we are also bringing Jesus Lapinga from Seattle, who is an amazing Hispanic Mexican performer and just amazing. And Lola de Boom Boom, who is, let's talk about shakers, movers, innovators, and founders of Pacific Northwest. She does so much with BurlyCon. She helps out at the Sugar Shack Brickhouse's Sugar Shack every single month. So she's coming down from Olympia, and these are both performers of color, different abilities, different styles. So we're excited to be able to accomplish our mission statement, not just Portland, but beyond. And it's not, I want to make it clear, it's not us being discriminatory against any type of burlesque. We just want people to see the people that have come before and done it. And there's people that have been performing 3 years that have been invited. There's people that have been performing 15 years that have been invited. If you have a wonderful signature act that brings joy and makes people feel something, we want to showcase that.
So speaking of artistic aspects, what's your process for creating a new piece of burlesque?
On principle, most of the time I'm inspired by the music, probably from my music background. I'm inspired by bass and drum. However, sometimes if I'm inspired by a character if I'm doing a burlesque act. It has to be a character, and then I pick the music. Portland is known for a lot of one and done shows. So there's so many theme shows. So many theme shows, so many one-off acts, which is something that I'm trying to use acts that I have, so I'm not constantly creating something I'm not attached to. So that has changed my process a lot. My process completely changes for that. I'm doing the theme that I've been booked for, and then I work backwards to find a song, to find a costume. But my ideal way is to listen and be inspired by the music, and then the costuming comes to mind. And then I reach out to my professional costume makers, such as Johnny Norell and Holly Day, to help me make that happen.
How many acts do you currently have in your repertoire?
My catalog probably has 25 acts that I have done several times, and probably 10 that I travel with quite a bit. Yeah. And I'm working more on fine-tuning a lot of the acts. So, for example, a lot of the acts that get into festivals have been marinated, have been around for a couple years, and are constantly getting upgrades. So, yeah, 25.
And so, that's a funny sound. I don't know what that is. So, around putting together an act or even a festival or a show, there's a good deal of conversation about cultural appropriation right now. What's your definition of that, and how do you deal with it?
Well, cultural appropriation is taking something from another culture that is not your own and using it to your advantage without giving credit. That's the way I see it. So for me, when I started doing burlesque, this was not a conversation. So this was 9 years ago. This is not a conversation. I was actually expected to be the sexy Latina or the spicy Latina in that group. And I actually really, really fought that, because that is not something someone else puts on you. That's something you own, and the opposite. So now I'm able to see, for example, do not wear garments that are not of your culture. If you are not Mexican or Indigenous or First Nations or Latinx, do not wear the headpieces that do not belong to you. Do not... dance moves are different because dance moves, it's dance. But do not say that twerking is your thing if you are not a Black POC. So just being aware, and I think it really helps as far as festival, and also being with a bunch of people that are very aware. Portland is very, very aware and is very into calling in, the call-in culture, like checking in. What did you mean to do this? So if something is obviously offensive, reaching out to that individual that's doing that, and then addressing it from there. For videos, being with two of the performers or performers of color, we can easily be like, that's not. And I'm very proud for my co-producers that are not POC being able to recognize and be like, I don't feel comfortable with that. That's not okay. Let's have a conversation about it. Mm-hmm. I'm very lucky that I work with professionals that are proactive in calling in, in checking in, and do not demand emotional labor, which emotional labor is putting someone to explain things for you, to do the work for you instead of you doing it yourself. So I feel I'm very lucky to be in Portland and in the Pacific Northwest, where that conversation is much more of a common sense. Don't do it. Don't edit out your music. Do not use songs such as, if you are not a Black performer, I've heard this from several performers, you're not a Black POC, do not dance to Formation by Beyonce. Or, there's certain Outkast songs that are intentionally Black anthems. There's going to be a crossover. For example, if there's a Selena tribute, Selena Quintanilla, who does not love the Tex-Mex queen, Mexican American, there's going to be a lot of culture celebrating her. And I think that's a conversation to have at that time, as long as someone's doing it respectfully. For me, as a big fan, I welcome it. Where's your intention with that? I cannot speak on behalf of other Mexican American performers.
You've talked a lot about diversity in burlesque. What's your definition, and how do you promote it in your work?
Okay. Diversity includes the variation from cis, white, thin, blonde women. Anything of that. And that shouldn't be the standard. That should not be the standard. We're saying that anything else is a mutation, which is ridiculous to think about that from a social anthropological standpoint. However, diversity is including not just performers of color, performers of size, performers of abilities, different disabilities, age, styles. So with Signature, Kit and I really strive to, do we have enough representation? We do not want to tokenize anybody. So we want it to be fluid. So when people see the lineup, they're like, oh, yes, there's queer representation, there's performers of color, there's performers of size, performers of ages and abilities. We do not want people to be like, that's that one special performer. That's what we don't want. Because I have been put in that spot several times and cast, and it's not a comfortable feeling. Likewise, I myself, as a performer goer, as a performer or spectator, I do not invest my money in shows that do not have at least 2 or 3 performers of color, or a percentage. And people say it's hard, it's the Pacific Northwest. It just requires research. It just requires you actually taking the time to branch out and reach out.
Yeah. People in burlesque say it empowers them.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to that?
It's very empowering when you are given the license to be who you want to be. And for me, it was owning myself as a central being, but also I am a goofy person. That is who I am. That is probably the most relatable thing to me in my personal life and how I flirt with people. So for me, it's being able to do what I do and being celebrated for it, but also being able to empower other people when I see their faces when I'm performing. And as I'm performing, I see a light in them and they come up to me and they're like, I didn't know that I had the license to love my body this way. I didn't know that it was okay for me to wear a G-string and be proud and feel myself and take a selfie. So for me, especially since I myself have been multiple sizes and multiple body images, know the differences and know how people react to that. And being able, for example, Portland Drag Queen Brunch, being able to perform so close to people, there isn't the 5-foot rule. And them not knowing that they have the license to do that for themselves, to just at least feel themselves and wear lashes and wear whatever they want, not be ridiculed, and empower each other. Not just, I get more empowerment from seeing my friends glow up, from seeing my friends feel themselves on stage and get that fire back. Because I've seen so many of us, and this is why I like Portland Burlesque so much. We've all been through life. We've all seen each other go through some serious stuff. And to see that light reignited, that's empowering to me.
Yeah. The 5-foot rule that you referenced, is that a real law, or is that just a...
It's a theater suggestion, I believe.
Okay.
You want to wear... If there's a little tiny stitch missing in your costume, if you can't 5 feet away, you won't be able to notice it, you're fine. You also want makeup. You'll be able to perform in an auditorium. Someone can see you from far away. So it's very dramatic makeup sometimes. Much more than this. There's a lot of contouring. But you can get away with little things. For example, a snap being off, rhinestoning not being there. Of course, if you're a perfectionist, you're going to be bothered by it anyway.
Yeah. So you've talked a little bit about how burlesque can be a force for social change. Is there anything more you'd like to add?
We have so many, we have the possibility to use our platforms now, especially social media. People become social media celebrities overnight. And not to say that they don't put work into it. It is a lot of work. I personally, that's probably my least favorite thing about performing, is having to spend so much time on my computer. So now I have different tools to be able to do that. But I now am at a point where they say Lola Coquette, and I'm like, oh, I know her, I know of her. And other people that are maybe of my heritage, maybe of my body size, maybe I am a curvy person with not a lot of boobs up here. So just being able to be and feel myself and have that representation for someone else to be like, oh, we have the same body. Or, oh, I hear her talking about her mental health issues in a very public way. Maybe I'm not alone, not being alone. So being able to use that for social change, preventing someone from feeling so sad and so alone is, I think, the most personal part of burlesque or this art form. And that's why social media is so powerful. It's not just about the likes, it's about someone connecting. Because, for example, seeing your support with the Oregon Burlesque Festival and what an amazing super fan you are, it's your life, but you're also a genuine fan before I ever met you. It was so wonderful. I felt such a love and encouragement from you for not just us, but every performer that we put on that stage. And that is very, that is a social change, to be able to help each other and build each other up instead of breaking each other down. There's a saying at Portland Drag Queen Brunch, we need to stop building walls and build each other up. And I believe that is where burlesque comes in. And that's why specifically Burlesque PDX is so special. And Oregon Burlesque is so special. Oh, wow. I'll give a little more coffee.
What are the challenges facing burlesque today?
Social media restrictions on bodies, specifically female presenting bodies. Also body politics. For example, I'll use myself. When I was a size 6, and if I were wearing a G-string, nobody would bat an eye. Now with me wearing a G-string, my pictures are flagged more. So there's a body.
By social media.
By social media.
The administrators. And
the administrators.
The logarithms.
Right. More body. Anything that's not the norm presents a threat. And I've felt it because I've seen it in myself. I've been all sizes. Also, body politics of colorism. Someone that has a darker skin tone will be more regulated than someone that is a fairer skin tone. And I know my privilege as a lighter skin tone person of color. And I see it. And I see side-by-sides models. And there's a huge campaign right now on Instagram. Why am I censored when this person is not? We're both people. We're both wearing the same thing. My body just happens to be a different shape, different size, different color. So that presents a threat. Specifically, Facebook, which is what we use for marketing and what we use for networking, won't let us pay for our own advertisement sometimes if we show too much skin. The Oregon Burlesque Festival logo is a drawn cartoon versions that Holly Day beautifully crafted for us. And it took so much for us to be able to use that in our marketing. And it's a cartoon of us. So there's other platforms that we've been trying out that I personally am going to be launching a Patreon so that I can share my art and also make a sort of living from that and be able to help take care of my art. But also that is a brand new platform. I just signed up for it for the pinup group that I'm in because that is less regulated and fans only, I believe. That isn't something else I'll be researching in. But just being regulated for your body. And a nipple is a nipple, an areola is an areola. And if you put them side by side, it shouldn't matter, but it does. And so not being able to promote our shows, not being able to talk about our art, not being able to sell our classes, our services, our events, because our bodies is really frustrating. And that's been happening to sex workers way longer than it's been happening to burlesque performers. So we also have a privilege in that, and I have to acknowledge that.
So final question. What do you wish the general public would know or understand about burlesque?
Burlesque is not like Burlesque the movie. I mean, it's amazing. As Cher and Christina Aguilera, love them. Costuming, I wish we had the costuming and the budget for that, and I wish we had a dinner club. I wish dinner clubs would come back in style. I would, in a heartbeat, if I had the money, buy one right now and make it happen. But it's not like the movie. There's going to be everything. There's going to be jiggle and shake embodies, it is political. Just being on that stage is political. So there will be some serious acts. There will be, I have an act that's a social commentary on the decolonization of Mexican indigenous women in the United States. That's the act that I'm taking to Panama and to Vancouver. So, and it's been blessed by my dad's side of the family, which is Yaqui. So it's not always cute and bubbly, but it can be. And it doesn't need a story. The only story is that you are a awesome person, fabulous person feeling yourself on stage, and that's perfectly fine. So just to go into burlesque with an open mind and look at it through the scope of childlike wonder. If you remove any preconceptions, any notions, you will enjoy the art form. And then you ask and sit. If it makes you feel a certain way, ask with it and ask yourself why it makes you feel that way. Why you're disturbed, why you're frustrated, why you're aroused, why you're tintillated. And if something does happen that disturbs you, approach the performer, not directly after they perform. Approach them in a private setting, send them an email. Hey, I would love to be able, I saw you perform. Something happened during your act. May I converse with you about it? Just be respectful. Remember that we are humans. We're humans just like you. We make mistakes. We are learning. We grow in the social scope, under the social eye of Facebook and social media. So we're going to make mistakes. So we just ask that you treat us like you would your friends. And just be kind, respectful, and consent. Everything is consent. But burlesque is more than the movie. Simple. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for doing the research and for doing this work and making sure that our stories are heard and seen and valued.